Well, hey there everybody, this is Snackbox coming to you from a sort of overcast but chilly and beautiful day here in Atlanta, Georgia. Today though, if you were following along last week, I published a video on the Titanium Stove, which was the inexpensive Amazon stove. In that video, I mentioned that I had ordered a BRS stove. These are titanium. They're about 25 grams. I've weighed it on my little scale here. It actually said it was about 26 grams and 27 grams when you include this little pouch and the little extra O-ring that they send you to make sure you can seal it here on the bottom to the stove. So far, I think this might be a really decent kind of find for us. We've got a lot to do. I'm gonna run the test on it. I'm gonna see how efficient this stove is at boiling 12 ounces of water at full bore. We're gonna see how long that takes. Let's get to it. We've got a lot to do. So just kind of looking over this stove, first thing that you notice is how incredibly small this stove is. This is much smaller than the last stove, the Titanium Stove that I showed you. It's actually it's the smallest stove I've seen, which is going to bring a smile to a lot of your faces. Now, one thing that you want to remember about that is I cook everything on a solo pot. This is a GSI Pinnacle Soloist. This is about the biggest pot that you would want to use for a stove like this, because something bigger would have real balance issues and you could end up in some real trouble burning your feet, say for example, if you accidentally tip over that pot, which of course is a lot easier on a smaller one. Just to give you some sense of scale though, this is a full-size Bic lighter, and that's what we're looking at here. I personally love the size just as a starting point, because what this size allows is that everything you need, your stove, your fuel, your lighter, everything can fit inside of this pot and you're in great shape. You might even, if you take the mug that they give you with this, you'd be able to fit everything all into one pot. I really love that. I think it really helps by way of saving space in your backpack, especially if you're trying to go smaller with your gear, which if you've been following along, you know that I am really committed to trying to shrink the size of my pack as much as possible to make up for all this camera space that I'm now carrying. So we'll go ahead and fill this puppy up here. We're gonna get about 12 ounces of water. I guess I probably need to see where that measuring line is before I start doing that. Would you agree? Not to get political or anything, but I think we would all agree that it really helps if I can see the measurement before I start pouring the water. You know, call your state representatives if you care about this issue. Do that right away. All right, so when we first weighed this I have a lot of these little cans sitting around. I weighed this one, I believe it came in at about 183 grams, give or take, which is an important starting point, because what we're really checking here is how fuel efficient is this. The Titanium Stove took about 2 minutes, 35 seconds to boil 12 ounces of water on full bore, and it used about 20 grams of fuel. So what that would do is that's gonna leave you here with roughly about 9 boils per canister. And that's an important number to know, because you're gonna wanna find that balance, because you might have a much lighter stove, but if you have to carry an extra canister of fuel, that really negates quite a bit of the savings of the weight. So we're really trying to figure out how efficient this pot will be. Like always, I have dog hair in my coffee cup. If you don't have dog hair in your coffee cup, then chances are good you're not as happy as you can be, because these dogs are just incredible creatures and they're worth every dog hair in every coffee cup. I think you'll agree. It's not hard to open up the stove here, but as you open it up, you kind of have to set them all up in turns. You can't open one all the way, then the other, because if you open one all the way, it jams, it gets stuck. That's just a learning curve. That's not an issue with the stove whatsoever. I'm gonna pour my water in my pot. We're getting everything ready here. I'm gonna get my clock out. Can we also agree that a clock is important if you're gonna time something? Stop at a watch. Open this guy up. Going full bore. Now you might remember the measure here is how long it takes it to bring the water to a rolling boil. It's a good equalizing measurement. It's not a perfect test, of course. There are a lot of different variables that can weigh into these. We're just trying to get a really good sort of general sense. None of these are going to be perfect, and that's also a really important lesson for anybody getting into backpacking. It's never a perfect measurement. Always there will be places where you're gonna make a decision based on limited information, because often you have to buy your gear before you know enough about it. So this is just supposed to give you a sort of an inside track or inside sense of how these stoves work or other pieces of gear. So I recognize it's not perfect. So I appreciate you kind of sticking around with that. We are at a rolling boil. It's looking really good here. I'm gonna go ahead and make my tea, and we can talk over some of these little features here while we wait on the stove to cool enough to remove it so we can weigh that canister. There we go. It's looking good. I've got a little bit of tea here. So I mentioned that it's always a really good idea to bring a little bit of tea with you on a backpacking trip, especially some decaf tea, something herbal. I really love an apple cinnamon tea in the fall when it's a little bit cooler in those shoulder months. So for those of you new to backpacking, shoulder months refer to those months that are the start or the end of winter. So it's basically those months where you're about to be too cold to go backpacking for the average backpacker, or you're just starting to get warm enough to get back out into the woods. That's what we talk about with the shoulder months. Now we have our stove here. On the other video as well, I mentioned that if you have like an MSR pocket rocket, it comes with a little plastic case. If you're in a real hurry for some reason, which I don't imagine, I don't know why you would be, but you can put that plastic case over it and use that to turn it without burning your finger. Now comes the real test. The weight, the efficiency. So this one was about 2 minutes and 56 seconds to bring the water to a rolling boil. So it took longer to bring it to a rolling boil than the E-Tech City, likely because the burner here, this piece is much smaller. And it's also worth knowing that in the MSR Pocket Rocket, that one is the biggest of all of them. And again, I'm planning to pick one up. I gave away my 2 Pocket Rockets that I had already, so I don't have one. But the size of the burner seems to be related to the speed with which it cooks the water, but I don't think that necessarily is going to affect its efficiency. E-Tech City used about 20 grams of fuel. This canister specifically started at about 183 grams. There you go, 9 grams. So it was 174 grams at the time we weighed it after the fact. This is big. I don't want to understate it at all. It took 30 seconds more to boil 12 ounces of water, but it used less than half the fuel. The other kicker with this is this stove is less expensive than that E-Tech City stove. So what does that tell you? If you're looking for a great entry-level stove, this one's your winner. I think this one is a no-brainer. If you really need a 30-second faster stove, then you're probably in the wrong hobby anyway, because backpacking is all about slowing down, taking it easy, and 30 seconds is not gonna make or break any hike. I think this one is just, this one's a no-brainer, especially for a first backpacking stove. I want to give a thanks here. One of the viewers recommended this, so I want to thank you for pushing me to get this BRS stove. I think this is a real winner, and I appreciate that comment as well. In the comments below, what I'd like to know is where you took your first backpacking trip. My first backpacking trip did not go well. It was in North Carolina. I was at a summer camp. I did not have a great time, and it's really a miracle I got back into backpacking, but I really love it now. It's well worth it. So I hope that you will tell me about your first backpacking trip, where it was, tell me a little bit about it. If you have any funny stories with it, that would be really great. Also, if you look in the description, if you're interested in picking one of these BRS stoves up, I will leave a link to where you can pick one up. You can pick one up through that link. It does help the channel out if you do. Don't feel any pressure to do so though. I just want people to get out into the woods. That's it. So if you found this information useful, I hope that you'll like and subscribe. Stay tuned. I've got some other stove reviews and some other different backpacking gear reviews. If there's anything you want me to review, let me know. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel as we grow this community. I've had a great time so far getting to know all of you, and I've made some great friendships so far as well. So I'm looking forward to meeting many of you on the Colorado Trail this summer, if that's how you found me. And if you didn't find me through my Colorado Trail videos, then that's okay. I'm glad you're here. Grateful for you watching this channel, and I will see you all soon, everybody. Snackbox out.